Today I wanted to talk about what kind of mindset is necessary heading into the new year, whether it's 2025 or any years following, depending on when you watch this video. I feel it myself, and I'm sure you do as well. You want to be a better version of yourself. You want to achieve X, Y, Z. There are so many different things that you want to do. And you have this grand vision. You have this like image in your head of your life being super grand, high quality, fulfilled. You get what you want. I think the psychology behind a new year is really interesting because on a subconscious level, not even consciously, but subconsciously, we see opportunity for a reset. That is the attractive idea about a new year, because most of the time, the year doesn't end up going the way we want it to, and we just want a hard reset. We want to go in with a clean slate. The first day of the new year is the easiest to be motivated and stick to everything that you want to do. Day 2 gets a little more difficult. Day 3, 4. By the end of the first week, it's the same old. You realize that life is just the same as it was in the last few weeks of December. And what's interesting is we know this. Every single year we go through this, yet we still fall into this situation where we don't actually manage to maintain any kind of meaningful habits in the new year. The reality is forming a habit takes around 21 days, according to scientific research. And it makes perfect sense in the sense that you do something every day for 3 weeks or every week, whatever your metric of time that you're using is. You do that for 21 days. It becomes the norm. It becomes regular in your routine. When something becomes regular in your routine, you have this momentum. So when the 22nd day comes, it's basically just hardwired into your brain that you got to do the thing. That's it. So I think heading into 2025 or whatever year you're thinking about heading into, you ultimately need to focus on keeping the habit, because we start building the habit. Everyone does that at the beginning of a new year. But the fundamental thing, it's just this one thing that you need to do, is focus on building and forming the habit. But then more than anything, you want to maintain that habit. You want to use every ounce of energy within you to not stop that habit. You want to do everything you can to maintain it and to keep committing to it. That's what you want to focus on in the new year, because if you really think about it, mentally, a new year signifies to you that it is a fresh start, that you're starting from a certain point in time completely clean. If you think about it, the moment you fall out of a habit, you struggle to commit to it. And I'll use an example of what happened to me. At the start of 2024, I started a bulk at the gym. And I was going really well. I was like 2 months in, I'd put on a lot of weight. I was really seeing progress in my gym performance. And then suddenly I felt quite ill for around 2 weeks. Now, that's a lot longer than average for me. And I was like out. I just could not do much for those 2 weeks. Couldn't eat. I couldn't perform in the gym. Like, I was just lying in my bed for a week and a half. By the time I recovered, I couldn't commit to the habit anymore. Or I didn't commit, rather. I completely fell out of the habit. And I struggled to rebuild that habit because I fell out of that habit. I lost all of my momentum. And when you lose the momentum, you just do not manage to harness and focus the energy that you normally would be able to if you had that momentum. What a new year does is you start from square one. So I'll use this metaphor to explain the new year. You have a boulder at the top of a mountain. Now, you know to get the boulder moving, someone has to push it. And you're willing to push it because you want the boulder to move. At the beginning of the year, you have all the energy, you have the willpower to push that boulder because you know that it's not going to move otherwise. Once you push the boulder, it's rolling. Now, when that boulder is rolling, that represents you committing to the habits that you are forming. And it's accelerating, it's getting faster and faster. There are lots of bumps along the mountain as it's rolling down the mountain. The boulder keeps hitting these bumps and it bumps over them, but that is you resisting the urge to break the habit. By the time a few days or a few weeks passed, there's a big bump, like a rocky part of the mountain, and this boulder hits it. Now, if you are working hard enough to push the boulder as it goes over that, you can make it roll over it. But if you have kind of become complacent and you're not really focusing on trying to keep the boulder rolling, or otherwise you keeping your habits in place, the boulder gets stuck. It gets wedged into this rocky area of the mountain. Now, when it gets wedged, it's in an even worse position than it was at the start of the year or when it was at the top of the mountain, because now it's like properly stuck. So you would have to harness even more energy to pull that boulder out and push it again for it to continue rolling. Most people have this energy at the beginning of the year. They push the boulder, they let it roll. What happens is they become complacent. they become lazy. At that point, the boulder gets stuck. It gets wedged in some section of the mountain. And when it gets wedged in, everyone sees it and everyone thinks it's impossible to get out of that wedge because it's difficult to reform a habit that you already broke. One thing I'm going to be doing in the new year, and I would recommend anyone else to do it, is once you've formed the habit, even if it's for a few days, your main priority shouldn't be thinking about the goal that you will get by doing this habit. It should be purely on not stopping the habit. So if you're going to the gym, don't think about the muscle you will build or the weight that you will lose. Think about you trying not to fall out of love with the gym. Let's say you want to read more often as your New Year's resolution, and you have your book. From day one, you're reading, right? You make it slow progress. You're reading a fair bit every couple of days. Once you get to like the third or fourth week, and you find yourself wanting to do other things over reading, that's fine. But what you need to make sure you do is prioritize the reading. A law that I've come up with for habit building and breaking is this idea that the later you leave a task to do in the day, the less likely you are to do it. So when you're starting a new year, the logic that applies is that from day one, all you're thinking about is doing the things that you want to focus on doing in the new year, which is these habits that you're trying to build. When it comes to a few days or weeks later, you start kind of falling back into your old life. And that high that you're on from New Year's Day is dying down. You have to make a conscious effort to keep those habits. You cannot let them break, because if you let them break, you are likely not going to build them ever again. The moment you find yourself saying, I'll do it at the end of the day, you have to take that as a sign that you are starting to kind of fall out of love with this process. And it's really important to kind of reel yourself back and say, hey, look, I'm not going to end up doing this if I leave it to the end of the day. Because what happens is you will start by saying, I'm going to leave it till the end of the day. Then you're going to say, I'm going to leave it until tomorrow. Then you're going to say, I'm going to leave it until next week. Next week becomes next month. Next month becomes a few months. Then it kind of becomes never. That's the reality. And I know you know that, but I don't think anyone has actually consciously told you that you need to focus on not breaking the habits, because everyone talks about building the habit. I'm trying to reframe that and say you need to focus on not breaking the habit when the new year starts. You have to focus twice the energy into not breaking the habit than you actually need to focus on building that habit or maintaining it. I know you want to change your life. I can see it in your eyes right now. Otherwise, you wouldn't really be watching this video. I'm going to encourage you to keep that fire within you, because that fire is going to die down after the first few days and weeks of the new year. And you need to take it upon yourself to recognize that it is dying down. No one's going to feel like this forever. It's the same with a relationship. You don't feel this burning passion the same way you did in the first few months and years compared to later on. It evolves and it shifts, the dynamic changes. So in the same way, you want to look at the new year as a relationship, and there's this burning passion for the first few weeks. You want to commit to it. You want to do everything about it. All you think about is doing the things that make you really fulfilled and happy and proud. But then you kind of fall out of love with the relationship of you and the new year. And then at that point, you just need to recognize, okay, I'm falling out of love with it. I need to make an extra effort to keep this relationship healthy and alive. And at that point, that's when you need to make sure you don't fall into the bad habits, that you don't break the good habits you've built. You maybe spice it up. You might need to change your routine up a bit. Maybe it's unsustainable. Just as if it was a real relationship, you need to think about the dynamic between you and your life and your daily routine. And ultimately, you will be able to master the year and achieve everything that you want to achieve. I am a firm believer of that fact. So best of luck for the new year. Happy New Year, everyone. I hope you gained some valuable insight in this video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to leave me a like, and you can subscribe to me here. I would love to see your face around, and I will see you guys soon.